You are someone who has always been quieter than the room expects you to be. You notice this early, maybe in classrooms where the hum of voices feels louder than necessary, or at family gatherings where conversation overlaps like waves, and you find yourself standing slightly to the side, listening more than speaking. You are not absent. You are present in a different way. You are the kind of person who absorbs the temperature of a moment before you decide how to respond to it. And for most of your life, people have tried to explain that about you as if it were a problem that needed solving. You've heard the words reserved, shy, soft spoken. Sometimes people mean them kindly. Sometimes they say them with a tilt of concern, as if quietness is a temporary condition, like a cold you will eventually grow out of. You've probably been encouraged to speak up, to put yourself out there, to stop hiding. And maybe you tried. Maybe you learned how to perform loudness when it was required, how to summon a version of yourself that could fill space on demand. But afterward, you felt tired in a way that sleep didn't quite fix. Not broken, just spent. What rarely gets said is that your quiet was never emptiness. It was never fear by default. It was never a lack of thoughts. In fact, it has always been the opposite. Psychologists have long noted that people who are quiet by nature tend to process information more deeply. Your brain doesn't skim the surface of experiences. It lingers. Research on introversion suggests that quieter people often have a more sensitive nervous system, meaning you register subtleties that others pass over. A shift in tone, a pause that lasts a second longer than expected. The way someone's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. You live in a world of details, and details matter to you. This is why silence feels full to you, not empty. When the room goes quiet, your inner world doesn't shut down. It opens. You think in layers. One thought leads to another, then another, branching out like roots underground. You replay conversations not because you're stuck, but because you're extracting meaning. You're asking, what did that moment reveal? What did it say about them? About me? About how people really are when they're not performing. You remember things other people forget. The exact shade of light on a late afternoon when you were younger. The way the air smelled before a big change in your life. The tone of voice someone used the last time they said your name with real care. Memory for you is not a filing cabinet. It's a landscape. And you walk through it often. Sometimes without meaning to. Sometimes because it feels like home. There's a reason solitude feels restorative to you. Studies suggest that quieter people often recharge alone because their brains respond more strongly to stimulation. It's not that you dislike people, it's that too much noise, too much input, too many demands on your attention at once can overwhelm the delicate calibration of your inner world. When you step away, when you close the door, when you sit with a cup of tea and nothing else asking for you, your system resets. You come back clearer, softer, more yourself. But the world is loud, and it rewards loudness. It celebrates the person who speaks first, who takes up space without apology, who turns every thought into a performance. And somewhere along the way, you might have learned to wonder if something was wrong with you for not wanting that, for preferring depth over display, for choosing meaning over momentum. You've probably been underestimated. People may have mistaken your listening for agreement, your calm for passivity, your silence for a lack of ambition. They didn't see how much you are tracking, how carefully you are choosing when to speak because words matter to you. You don't throw them around casually. You wait until they feel true. When you do speak, it's often after you've considered the emotional weight of what you're about to say. You understand, intuitively, that words land differently depending on timing, that a single sentence offered at the right moment can matter more than 100 spoken too soon. This isn't hesitation, it's discernment. There's a kind of courage in that restraint, even if it doesn't look like the kind people applaud. You might recognize this pattern in your daily life. In meetings, you listen while others talk, and later someone repeats the idea you'd been holding quietly the entire time. In friendships, you become the keeper of secrets, the one people trust with their unfiltered thoughts. You don't rush to fix them. You don't interrupt with your own stories. You let them unfold. And because of that, people feel seen around you, even if they can't explain why. Psychology suggests that this ability comes from a high level of emotional attunement. You're skilled at emotional resonance, at sensing what's underneath what's being said. Your quiet gives you access to other people's inner weather. You notice when someone's laugh is a little too sharp, when their enthusiasm feels rehearsed, when their sadness is hiding behind competence. You don't need them to spell it out. You feel it. This sensitivity has probably made you careful with yourself, too. You know how easily environments can shape your mood. You know which places drain you and which ones ground you. Maybe you love early mornings or late nights when the world softens and expectations loosen. Maybe you feel most alive walking alone, or sitting by a window, or driving with music low enough that your thoughts can still breathe. There's a myth that quiet people lack confidence, but confidence doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's quiet because it doesn't need approval. Research on self-concept shows that people who spend time in reflection often develop a more stable sense of self. You don't constantly check the room to see who you're allowed to be. You already know, and that knowledge doesn't need witnesses. You might doubt yourself at times, yes. You might replay interactions, wonder if you should have said more or spoken sooner. That doesn't negate your confidence. It complicates it. It means you care about impact. It means you're aware that you share space with others, and that awareness shapes your choices. Think back to moments when your quiet became strength without anyone naming it as such. Times when chaos swirled and you remained steady. When others panicked and you observed. When emotions ran high and you became a grounding presence simply by being calm. In psychology, this is sometimes called emotional regulation. You don't escalate easily. You hold the center. That steadiness is rare, it's valuable, and it's learned through years of paying attention. You have an internal life that is rich and complex. Ideas take time to form there. Feelings don't arrive in simple shapes. They blend. They contradict. You can feel grateful and sad at the same time, hopeful and tired, connected and independent. You understand that humans are not simple creatures, and you extend that understanding inward. This is why you're often drawn to meaning, to art that lingers, to music that says more in the spaces between notes than in the notes themselves, to conversations that drift into silence without becoming awkward. Silence to you is not a failure of connection. It is often the deepest form of it. Neuroscience suggests that when the brain is at rest, it activates something called the default mode network, a system associated with introspection, memory, and imagination. Quiet people tend to spend more time there, weaving together past experiences, present sensations, and future possibilities. This is where insight lives. This is where creativity is born. This is where you understand things without being able to explain how you know. You might not always trust that knowing. The world doesn't always validate intuition unless it's dressed up as certainty. But you've felt it enough times to recognize its quiet accuracy. That moment when you sense a decision is wrong before you can articulate why. That feeling when you meet someone and know, instantly, whether they are safe for you. That pull towards paths that don't make sense on paper but feel aligned in your bones. You are not slow. You are thorough. You are not withdrawn. You are selective. You are not invisible. You are observant. There's a particular loneliness that can come with being quiet in a loud world. You can be surrounded by people and still feel unseen, not because you're hiding, but because no one has slowed down enough to meet you where you are. That loneliness can hurt. It can make you question whether your way of being has a place here. But consider this. Societies need people like you. They need the ones who listen when others rush, the ones who notice cracks before things break, the ones who understand that not every problem needs an immediate answer, that some things need space to reveal themselves. Progress doesn't only come from force, it also comes from reflection. You bring balance, you bring depth, you bring continuity in a world obsessed with immediacy. When you imagine your life, it may not look like a series of loud triumphs. It may look like quiet moments that accumulate meaning over time. A relationship built on trust rather than intensity. Work done carefully, thoughtfully, with pride in the unseen details. A sense of integrity that doesn't waver depending on who is watching. And maybe, finally, the realization settles in. Your quiet was never something to overcome. It was something to understand. It shaped the way you love, the way you think, the way you move through the world. It taught you patience. It taught you empathy. It taught you how to be alone without being empty. There is power in that. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that endures, the kind that changes rooms simply by being present, the kind that listens and in listening transforms. You don't need to become louder to be more. You are already complete in the way you notice, in the way you feel, in the way you choose your words like they matter. Because they do. And so do you, exactly as you are. Quiet, yes, but never small.